Proud sponsor of the SKOR North Studios. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
That's right. Welcome in, Mackie and Judd here, daily Minnesota sports entertainment. And Judd, so I'm heading out of town on a little vacay here. It's like every like July or August, I just need like one good reset, and then we dive into the real grind, the football season. And by grind, I put it in air quotes because it's super fun.
Oh yeah. It's hard work. What
it really
we do,
is, yeah.
Heavy lifting every day.
Construction level work. It really is.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so we figured, all right, before I head out of town here, let's fire up a little Feedback Friday on a Wednesday, because we love our Feedback Friday sessions. I was traveling for work last week, and so we haven't done it in a couple weeks here, the two of us. Declan is off. We sent Declan, go ahead, do a happy hour thing, and we'll get back with you tomorrow. So Feedback Friday on a Wednesday, and it's very Vikings-centric here if you're ready to rock and roll. Brian L. brings in the first one. And by the way, this first comment here, this first question, this is from Twitter. We're going to have this one presented by our old friend Jeff Diamond, former Vikings general manager, 1998 season, and was later named NFL Executive of the Year. So he's doing training camp updates on SKOR North Radio, AM 1500 in the Twin Cities, and SKORNorth.com. If you want to check those out, presented by select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. You can find them sprinkled throughout the morning and afternoon on SKOR North Radio if you want to hear from a longtime successful NFL and Vikings executive. Brian L. on the Vikings says, would Mike Zimmer get fired over a wildcard playoff loss?
I love this question. My answer is this. It depends on what has happened. But if this team is healthy, if this team gets to the playoffs, and since there are now 7 teams, Phil Mackey, that get into the playoffs, let's say they sort of sneak in, okay? They get to their first playoff game, wild card round, and lose. I think the answer is yes. Now, if all hell breaks loose, Kirk Cousins gets sick, Kirk Cousins gets hurt, guys go down, and Zim wills them to a playoff berth, and they lose. I think the Wilfs look at that differently, but I'm going to say, for the sake of this conversation, that if the Vikings do what's expected of them, still finish second to the Packers in the North and lose in the wild card round, I think there is a coaching change. How about you?
Yeah, like I think you could say in a vacuum, well, how can you fire a guy that like his worst ever season is what, 7-9? You know, he's never had a train wreck season. He's never had one of those 3-13s. You know, you can't just go firing a guy. So I could get behind stability and what the Pittsburgh Steelers do, which is they've had 3 coaches since like the 70s, right? Or like
1969.
So since the 60s. They've had 3 coaches since the 60s.
In my lifetime.
That's insane.
Yes, but I'm very old.
But they preach stability. Now, the difference between the Steelers and the Vikings is every 10 years or so, the Steelers either go to or win a Super Bowl. And they've got 2 Super Bowl wins in the 2000s, one under Bill Cowher and one under Mike Tomlin. So I think if you're the Vikings and you're trying to find your first Super Bowl win, like the Steelers can say, listen, we're not going to win a Super Bowl every year, so we're not going to fly off the handle and overreact. We're looking for long-term, stable, let's avoid train wrecks, let's be competitive, let's win some divisions. The Vikings have one box left to check, and it's Super Bowl. And so they have to figure out, is Mike Zimmer capable of leading them to where they need to go as a franchise to complete the final mission after 60-plus years? Mm-hmm. So it's less about, to me, it's less about, like, how many games do they need to win, or did they win X amount of games in the playoffs? I think you really have to get to the end of the season, whether they lose in the wild card round or whether they go around deeper, whatever, and say, do you think Mike Zimmer can take the Vikings to the place they haven't been in franchise history? So I do think there should be a lot of pressure on him this year. Here's another one, too. It's a similar question from JV All-Stars. If we have another 2017 season where we make the NFC Championship game but then get ran off the field in that game, who loses their job? Who keeps their job?
Boy, that's... So if they do that again, Spielman's perfectly safe. Zimmer's
probably safe.
Is safe at that point in time. I I'm curious about Cousins, but not so much because of the end result as the overall organizational feeling about Kirk right now. Not to go back to the vax, non-vax discussion, but there are definitely a lot of people in the Vikings building who are not pleased and don't feel that Kirk is doing all he can to win, which, by the way, in football is all people care about.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody loses their job who is in charge if they get to the championship game and they get drilled. I just don't see that one. I think a playoff loss and out, yes. The championship game and you lose by a ton, you still made it to the championship game.
But then, like, here's the thing. Even with this conversation and these questions, it's all about, like, what do you need to do to keep your job? That's not the bar that I'm concerned about. It's always like, what do they need to do? Does he need to go 9 wins, 11 wins to keep his job? It's like, honestly, if you go 5-12 and it's still deemed that, you know what, that was a train wreck season, but I think if this and this and this happen, you can still lead us to a Super Bowl. Like, that's where, like, the record and then how many playoff wins are less important to me than the philosophy and the leadership and just how you feel about a guy's ability to be great as a head coach. And Mike Zimmer's good, not great to this point. So this year, there is a lot at stake for him this year.
If this defense does not play extremely well, Mike's in trouble because Mike's the one who basically said, get me defensive guys. Mm-hmm. So if this team, that's the point, is it's going to be how it looks as well. So if the defense plays lights out and Kirk screws up, guess who's going to divorce himself immediately from, not my fault, Mike is, to the Wilfs and say, my defense played well. That quarterback that Rick Spielman signed. So that's why this conversation is always going to come back to, how did it look? I mean, if Pat P can't play, guess who gets the demerit for that? Zimmer does, because he's the one who said, yeah, sign him up. So this is all, to me, going to largely be based on how does it look, who plays well, who does not play well. And it's not going to shock me if, at least internally, it turns into a bit of a power struggle and finger pointing by the GM and coach, because while they work hand in hand in acquiring guys, I don't know that they work hand in hand in saying that was the greatest move. You know, Kirk Cousins is Rick's guy. That's not Mike's guy. Mm-hmm. I think the majority of guys they brought in on defense are Mike's guys. So that's what it all comes down to. How does it look, and who can duck fastest and escape blame? Because that's sports.
And the good news for Mike is, if he does get fired, he'll have more time to golf and maybe stop by PXG Minneapolis, which is a golfer's paradise. And he can definitely afford top-of-the-line golf clubs. And PXG does have some top-of-the-line golf clubs, like the Gen 4 golf clubs, which you guys should totally check out. There he is right there in bobblehead form. Maybe we can change out that headset for a golf hat, a visor, and some PXG clubs. Maybe that's what has to happen. They also have clubs priced for all different levels of competitors. So check them out. PXG Minneapolis in Southdale Center. I love the mask, the COVID mask.
It doesn't stay on well, though. The COVID mask from last year does not stay on like it should. Ticks me off.
Find out more at pxg.com/Minneapolis.
All right.
All right, let's see here. Feedback Friday on a Wednesday. Continuing. Pablo Gonzalez says, when will Christian Darrisaw and or Wyatt Davis start a regular season game?
Okay, let's start with Darrisaw. He had surgery in January. He actually participated more, not first team snaps, but he actually participated more, I believe, taking second team snaps at left tackle in mini camp. In training camp, he sat out until about the last, 4 days. He is now suited up in full pads, but he is still not taking part. So Rashad Hill is your starter to start the season. And then I think that job is going to depend, is Hill good? If Hill plays decent, he keeps that job. If he doesn't, they rush Darrisaw. And the question with Darrisaw that I have, Phil, is what's his health? Because I don't think if he can play, he probably should. But, if this didn't go well, and let's say he's had setbacks that they're obviously not going to talk about, that becomes the question. I'm going to say this. Ideal circumstance, Christian Darrisaw, probably realistically, week 5 or 6.
Wow.
I'm going to say that.
That's pretty. They did not plan for that.
No, this is something's wrong. I mean, this is a disappointment.
Yeah.
Davis is not. So Davis might be more us being like, you drafted a guard, Ohio State, plug him in.
Yeah.
I can't prove to you that they said, yeah, hell yeah. I think they would like to see him second team, but they clearly saw something in the offseason camps they didn't love there. And he's a third round pick. It's disappointing, but it's not disastrous. The Darrisaw thing to me borders on a massive problem because there's no way that you trade back to 23 in the first round, pat yourself on the back, which they did, and then be like, but he had surgery, he can't play, right? Like that doesn't check for me. There's something that went wrong there, and that one's a problem. And Rashad Hill is a backup for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, has Rashad Hill ever played anything close to a full season? I don't think so.
He played a bunch of right tackle before O'Neal took over a few years back after he got drafted. And then he shifted over. Riley Reef got hurt and played like 2 games at left tackle. And he is a very valuable backup at tackle. But like if he's your left tackle for an entire season protecting Kirk's blind side, I don't like that.
I think you can live with him for a month, but it's not. It wasn't ideal to have to pencil that in for the first month of the season. And the other thing, too, is we don't know if Christian Darrisaw is going to be a good NFL player yet. You hope that he's going to be. He's a first-round pick. But Matt Khalil, who, in fairness, Matt Khalil was fine as a rookie, and then after that, the wheels came off and the knee injury and stuff. But, like, you never know. You know? TB92 chimes in here on Twitter. What are your thoughts on the Vikings potentially getting Larry Fitzgerald back as a ball boy for the 2021 season? He'd be a great upgrade for what we have now, and he has experience in our system, in our ball boy system. I like the idea. I feel like, so Larry hasn't announced his retirement yet.
No.
Does he still want to play? And the Cardinals have just said, I think we're good.
I have no idea. I have no
weird.
clue. But I think that's one that if you were going to bring him here, I think you would have done it in like June, right? July. Like now seems late. And look, this team has in a guy like KJ Osborne, a potentially developing player. So that's fine. The Fitzy thing intrigued me from a third receiver depth guy who is a character guy. But if they go with Osborne, I think that's fine too. Like among the places that I think Vikings fans should be concerned about, the receiver depth is not one of them.
Yeah, I think after seeing some of these guys and like getting your reports from training camp, just seeing some of these guys and some of the training camp footage, I'm a lot less concerned about the number 3 wide receiver spot than I was 2 months ago.
Yes.
Now, would it be fun to have Larry Fitzgerald around? Not as a ball boy, but as a player and sort of a pseudo assistant coach. Yeah. But who are you cut? You're not going to cut Smith Marset. You're not going to cut KJ Osborne, Dede Westbrook. Like that's 5. That's 5 right there. Then Chad Bibi, BC Johnson's out for the year. But yeah, well, I hope maybe he'll just sit out at this point. Maybe Chad it's the Bibi. Judd Zulgad rule of aging as a player. Just
exactly
we don't need
right.
to see. Yeah, we don't need to see.
Too, despite what our guy Declan Goff says, Chad Bibi's just fine. And Chad Bibi's role, I don't understand the over-the-top Declan hate for a guy who is certainly not spectacular, but you know what he is? As a depth receiver, solid enough.
You know,
he's fine. He knows the system.
Declan's not here to defend himself for this episode, but he did. Let's see. Viking Central tweets into the show. Question mostly for Declan. Did Chad Bibi ruin one of your relationships? What the hell?
It is weird.
It's a valid question.
It is an odd hatred that is sort of I can't figure out.
Aiden S. And Aiden, your question to us is presented by Dennis Kirk. Congratulations. You've hit the open road with Dennis Kirk and DennisKirk.com. 160,000 parts and accessories for bike riders, the Harley type, the sport bike type. Order by 8 p.m. and they ship the same day, and shipping is free for orders over $89. When the open road calls, head to DennisKirk.com. They ship today. And they ship this question from Aiden to us. Would you rather take Justin Jefferson on the Vikings or Anthony Edwards on the Timberwolves? You can only pick one, and you have to lose the other.
This is a very difficult question that I absolutely love. It's great. Okay. My logic is going to be dictated by this. the Wolves, and I know, Phil, you love the Wolves, but the Wolves are the Wolves. We're used to them being bad.
Wow, you're just dismissing all
the Vikings.
That's what's happening.
The Vikings are expected to be good and often are. So I'm going to lose Ant, not because I don't like him. I think he's great. But Justin Jefferson's presence on the Vikings roster is imperative to them being successful. I mean, look, Thielen's a nice player, and he makes some great catches. But Justin Jefferson is going to be, I think, again, by the end of this year, one of the top 5 wide receivers in the National Football League. He's that impressive. He's that good. So based on circumstances of which team I would prefer to see be successful, I'm keeping Jefferson and jettisoning Ant. Nothing personal, Anthony Edwards.
Wow. So I totally disagree.
And
it's not because of my obsession with the Timberwolves, because I also would like to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before I die. That's our motto on Purple Daily. But if the Timberwolves can't get Anthony Edwards to take off and become some some modern version of Dwayne Wade, then they're screwed. There's just not I don't know how many times you can keep getting top draft picks. Yeah, then they're moving to Vegas or my neck of the woods in the Pacific Northwest.
Or Kansas City, maybe.
Yeah.
Tampa?
Or I guess Nashville. They put a team in Nashville.
Nashville. Great.
The Vikings can win without Justin Jefferson. It's harder.
Yeah.
They're not going to move the ball as well.
Come on.
But a wide receiver has a lot less influence on overall team success than a star wing player who can shoot 3-pointers at a 40% clip and take over games. So in terms of the engine that drives winning, I'm not saying Jefferson isn't a huge part of it.
Yeah.
But you can win without Justin Jefferson. Hell, the Vikings went 10-6 one year with I think Bobby Wade was their number one receiver Berrien was. Berrien was their number one receiver.
But the game has changed since then. The wide receivers have become more and more important.
It's true.
I just know that I covered teams with guys like Aroma Shadu and Michael Jenkins and Travis Taylor, and it was no fun to watch. Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Thielen, Moss. They're so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I hear you.
Your team, when you're throwing to a 74-year-old Michael Jenkins, is pretty boring.
Yeah, but I would also say there's a lot of the Vikings jettisoned. They traded Stephon Diggs and they found Justin Jefferson. There's a lot of great receivers out there to be found.
Ant's fantastic. Jefferson's great. I'm just saying I think the Vikings have a better chance to win a Super Bowl than the Wolves do, the LOB. So I'm keeping Jefferson.
There's really no way to argue this without in either case, you're saying goodbye to a great potential generational talent, and you're dismissing one of them. So Minnesota Vikings guy asks, why do the Vikings consistently fail to develop rookies to play right away? Even in drafting the right player, they aren't ready, quote unquote, week 1, like Justin Jefferson. Not one rookie this year will start in the first few weeks. Seems like a wasted draft capital, and other teams find immediate roles for rookies. Is that valid criticism?
1,000%. Let's go back to last year.
Especially offensive line.
Why did Ezra Cleveland not play from day one? Are you telling me that Drew Samia, who, by the way, graded among the worst offensive linemen for his 4 games, among all O-linemen in the National Football League, are you telling me that Ezra Cleveland couldn't have done that or better? I don't know. And Zim tried to defend himself this past week by saying, people think I don't like them. Rookies, I love them. And if they deserve to play, they'll play. But I guess my question back to Mike would be, but what are your standards? And he's always talking about how, well, they don't know this or the special teams thing. They've got a long way to go. And it's okay, I get that. But pure athletic ability has to count for something.
Yeah.
And okay. When it
also,
comes
it's like Dakota Dozier was the bar you set. He's a veteran last year.
But when it comes to QBs, totally get it. You know what? QB, you throw him in, he fails, he can be ruined. But Cleveland or a guy like Darrisaw possibly as quickly as possible, I don't get it. I don't get it, and it's a good point. And I don't think it's that the Vikings rookies necessarily stink. I think it's the head coach doesn't trust them, but he doesn't trust them to a fault.
Yeah, I think he definitely sets a different bar for veterans in terms of what he'll allow a guy. All right, I don't trust Wyatt Davis is a bad example because he might just not be ready. But, I don't trust Justin Jefferson yet.
Right.
But I do trust Dakota Dozier or some slappy backup safety like Andrew Sendejo or something, right?
And how did you watch in training camp last year? How do you watch Jefferson in training camp and BC Johnson and go, you know what? We got to start BC.
I know. It's amazing.
What are you watching? What are you seeing? Wow. And you know what? Oh, Justin didn't run the exact right route. Okay.
Did they start on that 0-2? Remind me of the first two games last year.
Yeah, they lost to the Packers and lost to the Colts.
Trying to think of how close. I think those games were mostly out of reach, but maybe that Packers game, he started to come back. Yeah, but Justin Jefferson was good in that Titans game.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, he caught a long touchdown. But yeah, they started 0-2, and if I'm not mistaken, BC Johnson started both games. But I just don't know how you watch him practice and BC Johnson practice and be like, yeah, we got to start BC.
Man, yeah, it's a mystery to me too. Certified Kellen Mond Stan asks, you can guess what the topic's going to be here. What do you guys think Kellen Mond's upside will be? I wonder if this guy does this guy just go around just asking everyone questions about Kellen Mond? If you're certified Kellen Mond Stan on Twitter, you have to just be popping into everyone's at replies, right? Just how did he look? What did he eat for lunch today? What stores was he shopping in on Saturday? Did he find some good seafood? All right, he asks, what do you guys think Kellen Mond's upside will be? Have your expectations for him gone up or down since the draft?
I'm trying to think of a way to say this without coming off extremely negative, because my expectations were not that he was ever going to start as a rookie. My expectations after watching him for the first 3 days of camp and then he tested positive for COVID went down low, because I think there's a lot of mechanical work to be done. So they've gone down. He's not where I thought he might be, but to go to our conversation about the fact that I do think it hurts him to have sat out for 10 days, but it certainly does not destroy something. My expectations for Mond right now for 2021 are that he's going to learn as much as possible. I think he's a sponge, so I think he's a smart kid who wants to learn. I don't think it's a cocky problem. I think that's fine. So I do have hopes for him, but I would say between becoming sick and before that showing some signs of mechanics that have to be probably honed quite a bit, my overall expectation has gone down. But last thing, in fairness, he's a third-round pick. Yeah. So he's not a first-round pick. So it would be completely unfair to be like, I thought he could start by week 8. I did not think that.
Yeah, I don't think my expectations have changed at all, really. I mean, he's gone through OTAs and minicamp, which is, a large handful of practices. I think him getting derailed for 10 days with the COVID positive wasn't a good thing, but he was never supposed to. I mean, I think the setback is, could he have been the backup quarterback right away? If he had a great camp and he was there all the time and practicing and lighting it up. But we've always known that he's had mechanical things that need to be worked out, so that's not a huge surprise. I think the only thing that has really changed is, I thought he would be closer to being ready to be a backup quarterback, but even then, Jake Browning's been in the system and on the practice squad for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So it's not that, and he's a more experienced college quarterback too. So it's not that surprising that Jake Browning would be in this mix. So for me, 0. It hasn't really changed at all. And then let's see, Bulldogs 13 TV says, what was the point of the Mason Cole trade? He's the backup sort of swing center and guard that the Vikings grabbed. Was he a trade or a signing?
Trade, right?
7th round pick or something?
From the Cardinals. I thought it was a trade. I thought they sent him, a late round draft pick.
And he says, I haven't heard his name mentioned once during training camp. Will he even make the team?
Yes, I think he'll make the team. I think he is. When I charted it, and they did put out an unofficial training camp depth chart today, I think he is the center behind Bradbury. Now, it's interesting that they've had Davis sort of cross training at guard and center, which I think is a down the road thing. A guy like Cole, though, we wouldn't talk about. You're not going to talk about, the backup center looks great. He's there. He's there to add depth.
I think we might owe it. Let's just do a full episode next week on Purple Daily where we only talk about backup interior offensive linemen.
Pay it off. Yeah, so we don't talk about that, right? We never talk about that.
I need more Mason Cole updates. I think you need maybe a Mason Cole just live feed at the next Vikings practice.
I was going to say, I can stream it for you. See a little Mason Cole. But yes, I believe that he is going to make the roster, and I believe in an ideal world, he is not going to have to play.
Isn't it kind of weird, though, that this dude has experience as a center and a guard, a starting center and a starting guard in the NFL?
Yeah.
And the Vikings are running out for right guard right now. 3 guys in competition. Dakota Dozier, awful. Drew Samia was awful last year. And then Oli Udoh, who has upside but has never played guard in the NFL before.
Right.
Like, why isn't Mason Cole also fighting for that starting job? Do they just like Oli Udoh's upside better?
Yeah. Well, I think they want Cole. I think they want Cole behind Bradbury exclusively. I don't know that they see him as a guard. The Cardinals might have, but I don't think that the Vikings do. The Samia thing, don't buy. He is with this team and he's practicing. But to be very clear, the right guards are your guy, Udoh, Dakota Dozier, Wyatt Davis. Mike mentioned Samia. He doesn't practice there.
Is it possible that Mike just doesn't really know like all the offensive personnel? He's just naming names.
Interior line, it's absolutely possible.
It's like, that one guy, Johnson. Yeah, that guy.
I would love to know the story though about how much before camp, because it was just before camp that somebody panicked and said, "Okay, Dakota Dozier right now is our starting right guard," and somebody else said, Udoh, just move him from tackle and see what he can do.
See what happens.
So, like, there was a weird story there.
Also, I love how Udoh's become my guy because I'm the only one on this show that'll come out and just say, guys, let's wait to pile on him until he actually gets pancaked by a defensive lineman. And I'm not even saying he's going to be amazing. I just don't know. I'm basically saying my stance is I don't know yet. I guess we'll find out. He's my guy.
But I said the same thing last year about Drew Samia, and do you know how wrong I was?
Yeah, well.
I said the same thing last year. I'm like, let's wait, because he's got a nasty streak. Just wait till you see Drew Samia. He's going to really lay it to interior defensive linemen. And you know what happened? Again, he was one of the worst players at his position overall, not just guard, for 4 games. Yeah. So that's why I am very hesitant to say tackle converted guard. Yeah, that's going to work out well.
Well, I'll tell you, heading into the season, not really knowing who your right guard is going to be or your left tackle can be risky. And if you're a business owner out there, you want to protect against risks that could potentially dent your business. And that's where Federated Mutual Insurance Company comes in. Over 100 years of experience, based in Owatonna, they are one of us. They've been proud supporters of Minnesota sports teams, Gophers athletics, throughout the years, and they proudly support your business if you will allow them to. You can find a full list of industries that Federated protects at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. All right, good little session. Feedback Friday on a Wednesday here on Mackie and Judd.
Let's move this guy to guard and see what happens, Rick.
Oh, my God. Look at the depth chart. We totally forgot about offensive line with our cap space.
We were spending so much money on the quarterback. I knew I forgot something. I got to go back to the grocery store and get a guard.
Yeah, it's like, it happens. I went to the grocery store yesterday, and I forgot to get Pepto-Bismol, all right? I got to go back today. Sometimes you forget. Sometimes you can't read your grocery list.
Is like in those cooking shows, the quick fire challenge that has to be done on a really small budget. You've only got $5 to spend. Contestants go.
Oh, God.
Okay, I'll take Samia.
Dalvin Tomlinson and crap.
Give me Mason Cole. Give me a Mason Cole.
Totally
this center is not very tasty. He's not very good. Well, I just didn't have much money left.
That's probably what happened. So, all right, we're going to take a deep breath here, and we're going to come back, write that down predictions, and an accountability session here on Mackie and Judd.